Good morning once again. I'm State Senator Susan Rubio. I represent the 22nd Senate District in the San Gabriel Valley. I want to thank all of you for joining us here today to discuss such an important topic that affects our most vulnerable families in our communities. Today, I want to thank Senator Hurtado, the co-author of this bill, the California Grocers Associations, who are the sponsors of SB1419, which is the bill we're here to speak on behalf of, the Latino Coalition for a Healthy California, the California Food Policy Council. And so right now in California, there are communities with limited access to nutritionally adequate and safe healthy options. A large portion of these communities are low-income households, like the one that I grew up in, without access to a nearby grocery store, and these areas are known as food deserts. And because of this reason, families sometimes are forced to continue to go to fast food places and places where they just don't have quality food, quality that's going to help our children grow healthy and get the necessary nutrients they need to thrive in life. Currently in California, we don't have a financing mechanism to assist healthy food retail outlets to expand offerings to food insecure residents in food desert areas. Once again, just because a community has a high population doesn't mean that they have an adequate grocery store that can provide healthy options for our families. That is why I introduced SB 1419 and why we're gathered here today in hopes of providing a solution to this very critical problem. As an educator, I personally understand the needs of our communities. So I have to share personally what I had to do almost 20 years as an educator, and it broke my heart, and I'm sure it continues to happen in our classrooms. When a child comes to you in the morning, almost crying, telling you that they cannot start school because their tummy aches. It was common practice. They would come in my classroom and say, "Miss Rubio, I'm hungry." And the sad part is that I would ask them, "When was the last time you ate?" And they would say, "Yesterday in school." So I want you to take a moment to imagine that child. It's hard enough to get up and go to school and to show up without any food in their tummy, telling you that they can't concentrate. And so clearly we have a problem of access to food and access to healthy food. And so there's so many issues that we need to fix, not only as it pertains to grocery stores in our communities, but making sure that every child has that opportunity to go to school and learn and thrive and not have to worry about their tummy aching, as most of my students would put it. My head hurts, I cannot concentrate. So I want to give it a moment. Think of your children. Think of your neighbor's children. And think of what it means to that child. We tend to look at children as sort of separate compartments. One, a child that goes to school, and a child that lives at home. But we have to look at children as a whole child. Their nutritional daily lives has an impact on the outcomes of their educational life. And we have to start understanding that in order for our children to succeed in school, we have to provide them with the necessary food they need to thrive in school. So I'm so honored to have a group of people behind me who care very much about this issue, who have joined our cause. And again, I want to thank Senator Hurtado for joining our cause. But I also want to share with you some additional values. Again, we tend to think of the food issue, but let's talk about what depressed communities need. They need jobs. And allowing these supermarkets to come into food deserts will bring jobs along with them. Economic vitality. It will also cut our carbon footprint. If we really want to tackle the environment, then we need to have supermarkets that are close by where people are not having to drive 30, 40 minutes just to get the necessary food they need for their families. And so this bill is going to be incredibly important to ensure that we provide food for our families, job opportunities for the depressed communities, and that we take care of our environment. So this is a win-win bill for all our communities. So again, I'm so thankful for everyone that's here with me. And we're here to encourage our colleagues in the legislature and Governor Newsom to join us in our efforts to eliminate food deserts in our communities and help us pass SB SB1419. Thank you. And with me, I'm going to introduce Ronald Fong, President of the California Grocers Association, to come up to the microphone. But before we do, if I may, I want to say a few words in Spanish. Buenos días a todos. Soy la senadora Susan Rubio. Yo represento la comunidad del Valle de San Gabriel en el Senado 22. Hoy en este día existen comunidades sin acceso a fuentes de alimentos saludables. Una gran parte de estas comunidades son de familias de bajo recurso. Y estamos aquí para asegurar que estas comunidades tengan lo necesario, los alimentos necesarios para vivir con dignidad. Actualmente en California no existe ningún mecanismo financiero que puede asistir a comercios como supermercados a instalar tiendas para gente que vive en comunidades que le llamamos desiertos de alimento. Desiertos de alimento, una vez más, son comunidades que tienen que manejar 20, 30 minutos para agarrar alimentos saludables. Ahorita estamos promoviendo el proyecto de ley SB1419 y ahora es la razón por la cual nos estamos reuniendo esta mañana. Como maestra de primaria, yo entendí personalmente lo que pasa a nuestros niños. Como maestra, llegaban mis estudiantes a clase pidiéndome comida porque no habían comido en casa. Es una realidad que muchas de nuestras familias tienen que batallar cómo se les da comida primero y segundo, cómo se les da comida saludable a nuestros niños. Los niños no pueden tener éxito en las clases si no les damos de comer. Y estoy muy agradecida con toda esta gente que está conmigo promoviendo este proyecto de ley y le estamos pidiendo al gobernador y a nuestros colegas en la legislatura que por favor ayuden a pasar el proyecto de ley SB1419. Ahorita les presento a un colega, se llama Ronald Fong, presidente de California Grocers Association, que va a venir a decir unas palabras. Muchas gracias.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ron Fong. I'm president and CEO of the California Grocers Association, and it's my great pleasure this morning to be here on behalf of the California grocery industry and to support this very worthy effort to expand food access and food deserts. We're really pleased to be the sponsors of this work by Senator Rubio and Senator Hurtado, and I thank both of you for stepping up and taking the leadership role to combat one of the state's most intractable problems, and that's food insecurity. You know, we often talk about how economically successful California is. We're the Golden State, after all, the land of riches and opportunity. Yet 1 in 5 of the state's residents suffer through food insecurity and poor nourishment. We also know equitable food access leads to better outcomes across the board, impacting everything from school achievement to health. And Senator Rubio, I listened with great interest when you were talking about your experience as a teacher. In our own local university at Sac State, 1 in 4 of our students are food insecure. They don't know when the next meal is going to be. So they would rather sleep in their cars and pay for tuition than worry about where their food is. And that's unacceptable for a state like California. So today marks the opportunity for the legislature to draw a line in the sand, to create a real opportunity for grocers, to bring new stores into neglected neighborhoods, and to empower the grocery industry to expand food access to nearly 12 million Californians. Now, before I began my career at CGA, I worked for my family's grocery store, and I witnessed firsthand my mom and my dad feeding our customers that were a little tight before the 1st and the 15th, and who just needed a little bread and lunch meat to get them through until payday. This is the role that grocers play in our neighborhoods, offering nourishment, job opportunities, and a town square where you can catch up with your neighbors. I know intimately how challenging the grocery business is and how hyper-competitive we are with razor-thin profit margins. However, despite all this being a tough business, our members are in the business of growth and building businesses to serve our communities that are in desperate need of access to grocery stores. This bill will be a game changer for us. The reality is we can't do this alone. We need the state's help if we're to make food deserts a thing of the past in California. So I want to thank Senator Rubio and Senator Hurtado for their leadership and creativity in this very strategic approach, as well as their partnership with businesses to create financial incentives that drive change. With SB 1419, we believe that we can move much closer to ending food insecurity for more than 4 million households currently living in food deserts. Thank you. And with that, I think our next speaker is Dr. Aquino from the Latino Coalition for a Healthy California.
Muy buenos dias, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Dr. Ceci Aquino, and I am the Executive Director of the Latino Coalition for a Healthy California. We are here today in strong support of SB 1419, a critical piece of legislation that addresses one of the most pressing issues facing Latine and Indigenous communities in California: access to affordable and healthy food. First, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Senator Rubio for championing this essential cause. Your dedication to tackling food insecurity and poverty in our communities is deeply appreciated. Food insecurity is not just a statistic. It is a reality that impacts our daily lives. Nationwide, more than 1 in 6 Latine households struggles with food insecurity. Here in California, where Latine and Indigenous communities make up 40% of the population and contribute $83 billion in taxes, this figure rises to 1 in 3 Latine adults living in food insecure households. Alarmingly, nearly 950,000 of these adults live in households with children. The situation is even more dire for immigrants and those who are undocumented. Latine workers in California serve as a lifeline for this nation. The vast majority, approximately 83% of the essential agricultural workers who pick and produce the nation's food are Latine and Indigenous. They put their own health and well-being at risk to grow the food America eats, many times in climbing temperatures and more frequently in climate change-related catastrophes. Last year, during the 2023 wildfires in Ventura County, we saw heartbreaking images of farm workers bent over strawberry fields with plumes of heavy orange clouds above them. Many times, these workers struggle to afford putting produce on their own tables. Our current economic landscape further complicates matters. Latine families are spending 71% of their income on groceries and other essentials, yet they still struggle to access healthy food options. SB 1419 will infuse much-needed anti-poverty investments into low-income communities while strategically addressing food insecurity. We know that the quality of the food we can afford has a profound impact on our health. Studies reveal that adults experiencing food insecurity face significant short and long-term health challenges. Latine adults experience obesity rates up to 21% higher than their non-Hispanic white counterparts and are disproportionately affected by nutrition-related illnesses such as type 2 diabetes. Access to healthy food is a fundamental human right, not a privilege. While there is much work to be done to end hunger for all in California, SB 1419 represents a crucial step towards improving our community's health by increasing access to high-quality, nutritious foods. We look forward to creating a California where every dinner table is decorated by colorful produce, every child's belly is full, and every trip to the grocery store is only minutes away. With SB 1419, we take a step closer to making this vision a reality. Thank you. And let me introduce the wonderful Brenda Ruiz from the California Food Policy Council. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Ruiz. I'm here representing the California Food Policy Council, a council of councils, more than 30 councils throughout the state of California. I'm going to give some remarks concerning the effect that food deserts have on the health, nutrition, and quality of life of Californians. More than 10.5% of Californian households live in a food desert. This equals more than 11.8 million residents, many of them young children, youth, and older adults. We can't begin to talk about the health of Californians without also talking about nutrition. The two are very intertwined. Where there are fewer retailers with the ability to stock fresh foods, produce, dairy, whole grains, and other nutritious foods, in these neighborhoods, we see higher likelihood for folks to suffer from higher rates of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity. Fast food, tobacco and liquor marts, and gas stations, unfortunately, many times fill the unmet need for these nutritious foods. And as to the quality of life, primarily in Black, brown, and low-income communities that are historically underinvested in or disinvested, we see these food deserts. By ensuring that grocery stores can operate in California's most vulnerable neighborhoods, we can continue to provide the availability of healthy, fresh, and nutritious foods to our most vulnerable families. Neighborhood grocery stores are also better able to fit the culturally appropriate food needs of our neighborhoods, since they are located closer to where people live. And in closing, I'll add as an aside, our family just received our summer bucks, our sun bucks. This is an incentive provided by the USDA to fill the summer food gap while kids are out of school. And when my son received his envelope in the mail, he was so excited to receive his $120 benefit to use on local and fresh foods. He wanted to know right away how he could use his sunbucks. So I'm very thankful for this legislation because it makes it possible for my family and families like mine to work with our legislators in making healthy foods available for our children. And with that, I hand it back to Senator Rubio.
Once again, I want to say thank you for joining us here today. And as you can see, this is a very critical problem we have here in the state of California. Fifth largest economy in the world, and yet we have families that cannot afford food and don't have access to healthy food. And that only reminds me of my own family. Most of you know I was formerly undocumented, formerly deported, lived in a very low-income community, whereas it's already been stated, the closest you can get to food was the corner liquor store, and that's not healthy. That is not right. And the very people that pick our foods in the fields, that bring the food, quality food to our tables, don't have access to it, and that is a travesty. We need to ensure that every single family in California has access to food. My family was lucky enough to be able to get out of poverty, but there's so many of our families that are begging for us to do something. And as a former teacher in the classroom 20 years, as a former poor child in an inner city community with nothing but liquor stores around me, I'm also asking the governor and my colleagues to consider that. Let's put healthy options on the table for all families in California. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator.